want to say that I think forums like these are very important, and I really appreciate all of the people who came out to listen and to become informed on such an important topic. This would be the largest scale development project ever in the history of our state, and I think that it's a project to definitely watch and be interested in and follow. And I always welcome opportunities to be able to answer questions in a much larger format. But that said, you can always call us at the Department of Natural Resources. We're happy to talk with you. I do receive a lot of calls, and that's very fine too. So if you have burning questions and you want to give me a call, or Larry Lynch or Zoe McManama, we're happy to talk with you. But really appreciate these opportunities. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'll just say a few words. I moved to Wisconsin 25 years ago because it was an environmentally progressive state. The people here were good stewards of their environment. It was one of the drivers that reasons I picked my job here. And I still believe that. We're really leaders in the environment. And I think that what you see here tonight is an important part of that process. That people are engaging in the decision making, that they're making their perspectives and questions known, and people have to answer them. That's an important part of the process. It's a check and balance in the system that goes along with regulation, and it goes along with engineering. And so I think having all three of those is really important, and something that we need to continue to have and we need to champion. I also think we need to be pragmatic as well. We do use resources, and if we're going to use resources, then we ought to be thinking about, we ought to be able to produce them here as well. If we're going to buy iPhones and cars and all kinds of other stuff, well, we ought to be responsible enough to produce some of those raw materials that go into those here at home, and we ought to do it well. So I'll leave it at that.
This is a test, by the way, to see if you can remember the reverse order of what to bring. So far, so good. Good. I was nervous there for a second. I got a couple things. One is going back to the question about the non-economic social implications of this thing, these types of activities. And what occurred to me as an ecologist that knows nothing about this topic is this. This is one of the effects. What we've seen over the last 4 years is one of the effects. Communities try and understand what this means to their community, to their lives, to their value system, and what they want to see the future be. And that throughout this discussion, we've talked about very much like Dr. Benson says, that we use these materials, and that's right. There's no doubt about that. But the question looking into the future, when we think in that long time frame, is how are we going to keep using these materials? And to what extent can we look at recycling to get some of these materials and make sure that future generations can live with some semblance of the quality of life we have, because we haven't been borrowing from them using the practices that we developed last century or century before. And then lastly, just a soapbox, but a really short one. When we talk about decisions and how we'll know what will happen in the future and modeling and all those things, it's only as good as the data that goes into it. And the decisions, everybody's ability, everybody in this room, in your community, will be making a decision, even if just for themselves, about what the future will hold. And it's only as good as the data that goes into it. So keep asking those good questions. There's some great ones tonight. I've been amazed at how engaged folks throughout Wisconsin and the Northland have been to learn for themselves what this means. It's inspiring, it really is. Pretty much. Professor Parker.
So this has been a great experience for me, and I appreciate being part of this. I don't spend much of my time being out and about at events like this, because I'm still untenured, so I have my nose to the computer, and I'm mostly communicating to other academics. So this is a very refreshing change for me. There's a bumper sticker out there that presents a very old school view, pro-mining view, and it says, the bumper sticker says, real wealth comes from the ground. It comes out of the ground. And I think it's important to point out, which I've tried to do, is that sometimes, and it's not really paradoxical anymore, it's sometimes greater economic value. Talking about economic, traditional economic value is generated by leaving that wealth in the ground in their natural state rather than extracting the resource. And I wanted to emphasize that point because I think it's one that's maybe not made enough, and one that economists might not be appreciated for understanding, but really within the profession, it's pretty well accepted that the economic value can be generated from natural undisturbed landscapes. With that said, high-paying mining jobs are a big deal. They open doors, they create opportunities for the people that have the jobs and for the jobs that are created by that too. So I don't want to minimize that. These are really tough trade-offs when you think about benefits and costs of potential projects like this. So I appreciate being part of the discourse, and I think it was great, very useful.
A couple thoughts. One, I work for a engineering consulting company, and I've been doing this type of work for about 25 years, almost exclusively on behalf of mining companies looking to get projects permitted through regulatory agencies like the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I think a couple things. One, and I think Craig touched on it before, mining is important in our civilization. Our civilization wouldn't exist, we couldn't sustain ourselves if we weren't mining things out of the ground. Our agricultural industry, our transportation industry, our healthcare industry, our infrastructure, we couldn't sustain that if we didn't mine metal products out of the ground. So we need to do this. We need to do it responsibly. We need to ask the question, does Wisconsin really have a good process for how they're going to evaluate these projects? And I think anybody can look at a statute, can look at administrative rules, and they can quibble with them. And certainly if you're looking at it from a mining industry proponent, you might want to change things. Or if you're looking at things from an NGO's standpoint, you might want to change things. But Wisconsin does have a very rigorous process, and it's very transparent. It's very open to public involvement, like we're having here today. And I think it's something that the citizens of the state can feel confident about, that when the state gets to a point of making a decision, and a decision, say, to permit a project like this, that they're going to permit it based on very good engineering and science that's going to underlie a decision of that type.
Professor Zitz. Okay. A couple comments about the rocks and then about the mine and possible impacts. First, this is a very large deposit. There's a lot of iron ore there. And one of the interesting things about it is that 65-degree dip to the north, which means that if it were to be mined, the mine would be long and deep. Okay, so that's about the geometry of the deposit and the mine. And in terms of potential environmental impacts, what's proposed is a very large mine, and so environmental impacts are inevitable. It would take an area that is relatively pristine right now and turn it into a mine and a large industrial area. So there certainly would be impacts at the site. The question really is about what are the air and water impacts and what would be affected downstream. And these are difficult questions in terms of the science and what we need to know about the deposits. They're also difficult questions in our society because it's difficult to say what is an acceptable amount of environmental impact to live the lives that we live. And there is no such thing as zero environmental impact. So we struggle with this, and we're struggling with it here in Wisconsin. And this is sort of a microcosm of what goes on around the world, in that people need resources and jobs, and there's a struggle between that and protecting the environment and having these resources and having healthy workplaces and a healthy environment for the long term. So these are difficult struggles, and it's good that we are having these discussions like like this one, and this gets us thinking about our communities, what goes on in our communities, and our relationship to the earth, and